it's grown a lot in recent years, and it's becoming increasingly effective. And there was an example not so long ago which really showed the power of the blogosphere when Egyptian bloggers claimed that President Mubarak had died. Now, the government took days to refute that. So for a few days there, the blogs really had control of the story, and it could have really caused chaos. And it showed that the bloggers were much faster, much more effective at spreading information than this kind of unwieldy bureaucratic authority. They are much more difficult to control, not just in Egypt, but authorities find it much harder to control than newspapers or broadcasters, because bloggers are not centralized. You can write under pseudonyms. There are ways around government restrictions. I mean, Tunisia, for instance, had an even worse press freedom record than Egypt. And it cracked down even harder when the revolution started. But we were still getting news out. We were still getting images. We were still in the know. You are seeing a battle between governments and the people that governments are losing.
I think, sorry, just to add to that, I think that's absolutely true. And I think that the bloggers have actually managed to have a resonance with the day-to-day problems in Egypt. So it's no longer simply about saying bad things about the president or saying that he's dead. They've actually begun to use this ability to be fast, to be anonymous, in order to address problems that perhaps because of their class situation are not affecting them personally, but are extremely important for the people living around them.
So do you think we're witnessing really the Twitter revolution in Egypt currently?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is, I think this revolution has taken hold in countries where there is the most restrictions on freedom of expression. So people have to use these mediums to speak out because they're unable to speak out in other forums.
Rami, would you agree with that? Are we witnessing kind of the Facebook Twitter revolution right now?
Well, I would hold judgment on whether what we're seeing in Egypt right now is a Twitter revolution. I think definitely young people online were the tinder, if you like, to set this off. But I think what's happening now is far larger and has to do with a broader social and economic context. And so I don't think that without the mass of Egyptians suffering so much and becoming quite well versed in how to undertake direct action, I don't think this would have happened. So, in fact, bloggers themselves are far from taking the credit for what is going on. They're quite clearly saying this is a mass movement. They're an important part of that mass movement. But this revolution is not about them. It's about the Egyptian people.
I mean, we've seen sort of, people's uprising in Tunisia, and we've seen now people's movement in Egypt and demonstrations in Georgia and in Yemen. Do you think that social networking and blogging has played a role in tying these movements across the regions?
I think so. I mean, it's not just connected people within those countries who are demonstrating, but between those countries, so that they feel that they're part of not just a national movement, but a regional movement. And I think this is galvanizing people across those countries to act in solidarity with each other. And you have this. I mean, there's really a feeling of pan-Arabism right now when you look at these social sites and what's going on the ground that I haven't seen in a long time. Tunisia really was an inspiration that for a region that people have been so used to assuming that the Arab world is just immune to change and development and human rights and democracy and all these things. And all of a sudden, almost out of the blue, this has struck a chord. And as you can see now, it's spreading throughout the region because people see that if they act, a difference can be made.
I agree, and I would say it goes beyond connecting people within the region. They're connecting us to the region. We are glued to Twitter and Facebook and the TV and every form of communication. So I would say, yes, it connects people, but it doesn't simply connect people on, let's say, on the basis of ideology or language. I think it resonates to a larger global consciousness which is interested in what's happening in other parts of the world and feels that it's relevant to their own lives. So yes, I would say social networking is definitely important.
Sharif and Rami, thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll definitely keep a very close eye on how events unfold in that region. But thank you. And thank you so much for watching, and I do hope you join us again next time here on Witness.
to access a market of 1.5 billion consumers. Please push the button for more power to your global business. Invest in Turkey.
Volunteer tourism is booming in Cambodia, with more and more foreigners helping out in the country's orphanages and schools. But with claims of mismanagement and corruption, are these projects doing more harm than good? 101 East at this time on Al Jazeera.
Interest rate cut in the United States
market is tightly regulated.
From the world to your phone. Al Jazeera Mobile.
Egyptian people will be the ones who will make the change.
We are mobilizing tomorrow a mass protest from Tahrir Square.
If we decided to give in now, they will hunt us one by one.
Protesters refused to budge despite talks between the Egyptian government and opposition groups. I'm Sami Zaidan, you're watching Al Jazeera. Also making the headlines, the WikiLeaks founder begins his fight against extradition to Sweden to face charges of sexual assault. Bushfires rage across Western Australia. Over 1,500 hectares of land has been destroyed. And it's coming home. Green Bay get their hands on the NFL's most famous trophy.
Back to you, Kurt. Won the Super Bowl.
The Muslim Brotherhood tells Al Jazeera it's reviewing its decision to take part in talks with the Egyptian government. On Sunday, the group joined other opposition representatives to sit down with the country's vice president for the first time. Well, pro-democracy protesters appear unmoved after those talks between the government and opposition. Alan Fisher has been following developments.
Week 3 starts here. The numbers stay the same. The space they're allowed to occupy is getting smaller. Slowly, the army is squeezing the area around the square, trying to get life around it back to normal. Protesters say they'll block any attempt to kick them out.
If they slept underneath the tank to force the soldiers not to move.
US President Barack Obama has told one US TV channel change is coming to Egypt, but how far and how fast is in the hands of the people.
Egypt is not going to go back to what it was. The Egyptian people want freedom, they want free and fair elections, they want a representative government, they want a responsive government. And so what we've said is, you have to start a transition now. Mubarak's already decided he's not running for re-election again. His term is up this year. And what we've said is, let's make sure that you get all the groups together in Egypt, let the Egyptian people make a determination, what's the process for an orderly transition, but one that is a meaningful transition.
The Muslim Brotherhood, banned for decades but still Egypt's largest opposition group, took its demands to Vice President Omar Suleiman. It says changes have been promised, but not the one it really wants, the immediate removal of President Mubarak.
No positive response was given to most of the demands. Only some cosmetic rather than substantial demands were accepted.
The concern for the anti-government camp is the air is being sucked out of these protests, momentum is being lost. They say they're staying, but for the moment, so is the man they desperately want out. Alan Fisher, Al Jazeera.